Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our first session of our annual conference. I'm here with our speaker from our school in Madrid, the British Council School in Madrid, Rebekah Willis. And we're really looking forward to this session called The Gardening Project, Inclusion and Ecology. What if the youngest children in school could become leaders in environmental awareness? What if environmental education gave the opportunity to adults with intellectual disabilities to enter the world of work? Those are some of the questions that Rebekah will be talking about today. As I said, Rebekah's a senior leader at the British Council Primary School in Madrid. And well, thank you so much for your session in this year's conference, Rebekah. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much to everyone for joining this morning. I'd forgotten when I wrote that blurb about the talk. It sounds pretty stirring, doesn't it? I've made gardening sound really cool. So hopefully just over the next short while, what I'm hoping to do is just explain a bit about our project and how it's developed over time in the school, and hope that you can take away something from it, if not just enjoying the nice pictures. So we're going to get started. Before we begin, I think it's always nice when someone gives a talk that you know a little bit about the person who's talking to you, and perhaps why, how I got to the place I am now, giving this talk on a Saturday morning. So just briefly to give you a bit of background about me, I was born and raised in a very small town called Dunstable over in the UK. You can see there in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, widely considered to be one of the very few nice photographs of my hometown, that one. But importantly, there I grew up as the third of 9 children, a very big family, where I definitely learned very, very early on the importance of finding your own voice, but appreciating diversity, appreciating the differences around you. So I moved on, went to university in Southampton. You can see there in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Southampton, I went to study English, but I decided that I liked studying so much that I stayed for an extra year to do my teacher training. Loved being in Southampton, and something really interesting that I got involved in that teacher training year was a project which was designed to help the Polish community there to integrate more into the schools. So I very, very early on, even in my teacher training, really wanted to get into that idea of diversity, inclusion, and appreciation of different people who we encounter, both in school and in other contexts. Something else that I had the opportunity to do while I was studying was go away to Strasbourg in France for 2 months. I did one of my teaching placements there. That's the picture you can see in the middle. Beautiful city, had a brilliant time, and that was my first opportunity, my first experience of teaching in a different culture, and really seeing how other countries, how their curriculums work, how their teaching styles work, and for me was a really interesting learning experience. And then, of course, you can see at the top, I moved to Madrid in 2015, decided that I wanted to have a go at teaching in a different culture and learn another language. I've been at the British Council School here in Madrid since 2015. I started out as a teacher, moved in to be a middle leader, and now I'm a member of the senior leadership team in the school. And my responsibilities in the school have a strong focus towards science, the science curriculum, and also the pastoral element, children's well-being. And again, that's something which has allowed me to develop those interests that I've had from very, very early on, about diversity, inclusion, and also, as you'll see throughout the course of the presentation, about the idea of environmental issues as well, which has come up as something throughout the course of my time here in Madrid. So now you know a little bit about me and who I am. Let me just explain a bit about the presentation. So I'm just going to give you a brief history of how our gardening project began, where it came from, and why we decided to develop it. I want to show you how we linked it to our curriculum goals, and also how we link it to our diversion and inclusion aims that we have in the school, and also to explain a bit about where we're hoping to go with our project that we have just this year started to grow, not wanting to make a pun, but grow the garden area to include what we're calling the Nature Observatory, which I'll show you a bit more about later. So we'll get started. The gardening project began in 2016. we wanted to find a way to use basically an area of the school playground, which was pretty well an unused space, a little bit ugly, a bit of an eyesore. And we wanted to make use of that space in order to, number one, have a place that the whole school could enjoy, something to make the school surroundings look nicer. But we'd also started to realise that if we could turn that area into a garden, it would give us an opportunity to take learning outside, which is something that those of you who work in urban schools will know is sometimes a bit difficult, and also to achieve some curriculum aims, which again, being in the environment we were quite hard for us to achieve. So if you think about science as a subject, the science curriculum has plant growth, mini beasts, habitats, all of these topics which are quite hard to do in a hands-on way when you're not in a school which has got a great big field behind it, for example. So we wanted to have an area which eventually would attract wildlife and give us opportunities to take that learning outside of the classroom into a really, really hands-on context. Something else that we really wanted to do was to be able to give our children an opportunity to demonstrate our 5 school values, which you can see there on the screen. We thought very, very carefully about what kind of project would enable us to encourage the children to show those 5 different values in different activities and through in different ways. And that's what we really felt we came to with the gardening project. So you can see there in the photograph, this is the greenhouse that we had built at the very, very beginning, in its rudimentary beginning kind of stage with the straw on the floor, a couple of benches, but it did us absolutely fine as we started out. A few more pictures to show you how our garden space began. The bottom left-hand side, you can see that big expanse of grey concrete that we had. Now, we didn't want to get rid of it completely because it does provide us with a sort of through passageway to help us keep the school sort of organised. But what we did decide to do was to build in, as you can see in the photographs, those big wooden planters where we were going to have each class with their own little mini allotment, as it were. And it was a very exciting day when the big truck arrived and dumped loads of soil into those planters. And you can also see there in the very middle of the screen that space where we eventually built our big greenhouse there, which has now got the greenhouse in it. So as I mentioned, we always, whenever we bring in any new initiative into school, we try to consider, or we need to consider, the curriculum goals. So we looked really carefully back through the science curriculums for year 1 and year 2. Now, I said that we started the project with year 2 children, but we felt that we wanted to look back and backtrack a little bit to see if there were any year 1 objectives that we could bring in to make sure that we reinforced what they might have not been able to fully achieve in the year 1 classes because we didn't have that outside space previously. So we looked carefully at how we could make sure that it wasn't just a lovely opportunity to go outside and have fun, which it is, but also that it was really firmly based in the curriculum. So we drew out of our science curriculum information about living things, about habitats, about plant growth, changes in the weather, all of these kinds of things that we felt could be achieved through working in the outside area, in the gardening area. However, aside from the curriculum, we also felt that we had other aims. As I mentioned before, our school values to us are really, really important. And we wanted to make sure that we created activities and opportunities for children to develop the whole child, as we say, don't we? But we wanted the lessons to be engaging. We wanted children to be able to work in a team, work individually, ask loads of questions. It really is a space where the children were given pretty much free rein. Yes, we had activities for them to do, but we wanted them to be able to lift up rocks and look into the soil, see what mini beasts they could see. We wanted them to ask us questions about the seeds and tell us what they could observe. Really, really good science skills as well as other skills, curiosity, teamwork, being participants in their own learning. So the children really do direct those sessions. They ask us the questions, they tell us what they want to look at, they tell us which plants they think are ready for us to start harvesting, and sometimes we have to tell them not quite yet. But it's a really, really nice space for them to develop in their own learning experience too. So just to share a few photos, this was at the end of our first season of growing, so our first year's harvest. You can see we went for a lot of different varieties of lettuce. The children loved seeing all the different lettuces, things like kale, we grew cress, We grew strawberries, tomatoes, and you can also see that we tried as well initially to start to introduce some other types of plants in amongst the lettuces and the vegetables. Those of you that know a bit about harvest and about growing, you'll know that it's quite a nice idea to do that, to have a sort of slightly more wild allotment, because it attracts other animals, it attracts wildlife, which in the end helps our allotments to grow much more nicely. So the children were all completely in love with their lessons after the first year. As you can see, they got really excited when they could show what they had grown, and it really gave them that sense of ownership. You know, I planted this seed and I watched it grow, and now I'm eating a piece of the lettuce. So a really, really nice full circle approach to their learning as well. Now, something we do in the school every time we introduce any kind of new initiative is we always do some pupil voice. So we talk to the children, we ask them what they think about the lessons, what have they learned, what they would love to do that we didn't do this year. And I just put on the screen there one really, really lovely piece of student feedback that we got after that first year. Remember, this is from a year 2 child who had the insight to say that when you go outside, every single day something else is happening in the garden, something new is growing, there's something else going on. So he's really reflecting on his observational skills there. And when you see the lettuce is growing from a tiny seed, it's incredible. That was the word he used. So you can see that there really was a joy for the children in the gardening sessions. They loved seeing the garden grow. They loved being the ones who planted the seeds, and really that gave them that curiosity. When they remembered they had a gardening lesson this week, you should see how quickly they come down the stairs ready to rush out to the gardening area. So it's something which they got really, really excited about. So once we had our project established for about a year and a half, we started in 2016, but halfway through the year. So in the academic year 17-18, we carried on with the same project. So once it was well embedded and we could see that we were achieving our curriculum aims, we then started to ask, how could we develop the project further? How could we make it achieve other aims that we wanted for our children? And we saw at the beginning in the intro to the talk that Michael read, that we wanted something really got to us, this idea of the youngest children in our school being the champions for change. So we wanted the youngest children in our school to be the ones who go home and get on at their parents about environmental issues, or about recycling, or about the importance of working with different people. And so we decided that we wanted to develop the project in that way. We were already confident that in terms of our curriculum, we're meeting our curriculum needs. So working alongside with that, we wanted to find a way for the project to also meet other needs that we had. And at that point, we got involved with the Fundación Juan XXIII, which is a charity organisation here in Spain that works with people with different disabilities. And they have a branch of their foundation, their charity, which enables people with various disabilities to get into the world of work. And they do that by training them up in different skills and then introducing them into different areas in the world of work. And that's what really attracted us to this project, to this collaboration. So I'm just going to leave on screen and I'm going to stop speaking for a moment so you can read. This is the statement that the charity, Juan XXIII, made when they started the collaboration with us. Okay, so from that statement, what you can see there is that they clearly had the same goals in mind as us. They're really interested in a strong curriculum approach, but also whilst adding values in education towards diversity, inclusion, and in this case, the participation of their colleagues with disabilities to get them into the development of the gardening workshops that we created. So as a school, we wanted to make sure that we were able to meet our diversity and inclusion goals. We want the children as young as 4, 5 and 6 to understand other people, to understand that people come from different backgrounds and to be sensitive towards that and to be inclusive of people from different backgrounds. Our school is a place which is increasingly diverse, but typically we have children and families from similar backgrounds. So we felt it was very important for us to begin to help the children at a very young age to start to see that We can work with people from all different backgrounds, and their contributions are just as valued and as valid as ours. And what's become a really wonderful part of the project is how much the children appreciate their gardening teachers. They recognise that some of these people are different to them, that they might speak a different way, that they might have a different background, but that they are, at the end of the day, a teacher, an expert in gardening, and somebody who teaches them about how plants grow and why certain insects are attracted to the garden. And that is so invaluable for them because it takes away that barrier. It means that they're not different anymore. They're a teacher who's teaching me something, and the children love the gardening sessions that they have with the people who come from the Fundación. So we worked really closely with our colleagues there from the charity to make sure that we were developing these sessions in the way that we still wanted to. We want to make sure that we had a variety of activities to enable, again, to develop that love of learning, that joy of being in the garden, but also to develop skills and responsibilities. So when we talk about the 3 different kinds of activity, and I'll show you some photographs in the next couple of slides, responsibility activities are the kinds which the children have to do on a daily or weekly basis: watering the plants, cutting things back, recording changes, making observations. All of those things are responsibilities which someone who is looking after an allotment has to do on a regular basis. So we teach the children that that's important. If I forget to do those things, I'm not going to have a good awareness or control of what's going on in my allotment. Also environmental awareness, so we've integrated games, stories, craft activities to develop the children's understanding of wider environmental issues, and this is something else which has become more and more part of what we're trying to do in our gardening sessions. The children learn that really nothing needs to be wasted from the garden. We teach them about composting. We teach them how to make paper from using the skins of onions, for example. They've built scarecrows using old second-hand clothes and also leaves and straw and the leftovers from the gardening lessons. And they love these activities because, again, it reinforces to them that the idea that nothing is wasted, we can reuse, recycle everything, and we're actually doing a favour to the environment by doing it. And then finally, we wanted to make sure that as well as these environmental and much more experiential elements to the project, we wanted to also make sure that we still had skills-based activities too. So as I said before, teamwork, observational skills, and remember these children are 5 and 6 years old. So we give them sentence starters to help them to describe what they can see, to describe how that plant has changed since they were in the garden last week. It develops language. Our children are second language acquirers. Most of them are Spanish speakers as a first language. So it's, again, helps us as a school to meet those language acquisition skills, which we are working with in the classroom, just in that different context outside of the classroom. So just to give you an idea of some of the activities and things there, you can see one of the scarecrows the children have made. Watering the garden is the first thing they have to do in the beginning of every gardening session. On the right hand side of the screen, you can see the children making their sort of calendar or their seasonal calendar. So each class, each group has their little calendar, which in the end of the year makes a sort of pizza slice, full year in seasons in the garden. And as they observe new things happening, they can fill it with pictures, with words, with the things that they've seen. They draw the different plants that they can see growing. In one of them, I haven't got a photograph of it, one of the boys, he had noticed a plant growing every week he went in, and on his little segment of the drawing, you can see he starts with a tiny little plant, and then it gets bigger, and then the next week he drew it bigger. And it's a really lovely way for us to see how the children are observing what's happening there in the garden. A few more examples. So speaking with one of our gardening teachers, Myra there, she's teaching them about how the plants are growing and how we can observe and measure and how we can make sure we know our plants are growing in a healthy way. And of course the children, you can see they're very, very hands-on. The children are the ones who plant everything. The children are the ones who prepare the soil. They build a wormery. They compost all of the material that we don't need. So they really are the champions. They're the ones who do it all. We tell them what to do, but then they do it. So as our project has begun to develop, we've also developed the area more. I'll show you some more photographs near at the end of the presentation about which show how we've continued to develop the space. We've built in some new areas of that garden zone. We're fortunate that we've been able to do that. And something else that we realised quite early on as we began to develop this project was the possibility we had to make the most of other awareness days. And we really use our garden area as a hub or a springboard for these kinds of activities. So you can see here World Wildlife Day, which we celebrated last year. We used the garden area where lots of children visited the garden space to see what it looks like, to have a bit of an investigation, look around, see what they could find in terms of mini beasts and other animals. We look around and see, do any birds come and visit our garden, butterflies. You can see we've got snails, worms, ants, that of course, everywhere we go there's ants. But the important thing is that we use that space we have the privilege of having to help the children to understand other environmental issues, to start thinking about human impact on the environment. And we use all of these environment themed days to help them to do that. So we've also celebrated Climate Action Day. Again, we started off with activities from the garden, and then every class in the school, not just the youngest ones, went on to do projects with their teachers in class based around climate action. World Water Day, we go into the garden and we look at how we water the plants, the watering system that we have. Do we think it's good for the environment? Are we making good use of water? So we can really use this space as a springboard for lots of learning about lots of different things. And remember that I mentioned the curriculum for us is key. We know that we're meeting our curriculum needs. So now it's our opportunity to expand that and say, what other areas of our curriculum, what other areas of PSHE, for example, can we start to touch on just within this space? Because it's outside, because it's leaving the classroom, it always has that sense of we're doing something different and we're doing something more fun. I don't want to say that because of course our teachers' lessons are in the classroom, but outside of the classroom it has something special, doesn't it? So all of this work, now this doesn't happen very often and I normally wouldn't do it, but we did manage to get draw the attention of the local media. So we had a couple of radio interviews where people were asking us about the project, particularly because of this collaboration, the idea of the children being the champions for change and also collaborating with the Fundación Juan XXIII, because they are working with people with disabilities, giving them an opportunity to get into the world of work. So I just want to show you, we did make it onto the news. It's doesn't happen often that something we do in school gets onto the news. So I'm sorry to plug the project in this way. I'm going to show you the little clip from the news. It was shown on the Spanish local news here. So it is in Spanish, the report. So those of you who speak or understand Spanish, you'll be able to understand it completely. And if not, it will just give you, you'll be able to see the garden a bit more alive than just in the photographs. Just bear with me for a moment because I've had a little pop up on my window saying the audio is not working. So I'm just going to have to unshare the screen. I'm going to try and share it again. These things happen. Yeah, fingers crossed it works. Okay, let's see if this time we're lucky.
Y sus profesores son personas con discapacidad intelectual de la Fundación Juan XXIII, una iniciativa que esperemos dé muchos frutos.
¿Quién se acuerda cómo se llamaba?
¿Lechuga?
No, es parecido a la lechuga, la familia de la lechuga. Empieza con la A.
Acelga.
Exactamente, son las
Están haciendo los niños porque es una clase poco habitual.
Bueno, eso sí, este espacio forma parte de nuestro proyecto sobre el medio ambiente. Con los niños aquí están aprendiendo, por supuesto, cómo crecen las plantas que necesitan para crecer, pero también están aprendiendo a tener más conciencia sobre el medio ambiente.
Estoy buscando bichos.
Bichos. Ay, mira, ahí hay uno.
My screen's frozen. Is that screen frozen for you as well, Michael?
Yeah, it's frozen here too, unfortunately, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can try and start it again.
Qué bien se maneja Ricardo.
Sí, además los niños son enamorados de él y no sabes que venimos de la Fundación Juan XXIII, que trabajamos con personas con discapacidad intelectual, y Ricardo ha hecho un curso de formación en jardinería y agricultura ecológica y ahora tiene una oportunidad de trabajo.
Pero que se desarrolla él y desarrolla a los niños.
Claro, no solo él se desarrolla profesionalmente y personalmente, pero enseña lo que ha aprendido a los niños.
Estas son muy chiquitas todavía, son muy pequeñitas.
Este espantapájaros no tiene nombre, ¿verdad?
¡Papagayo!
Papagayo. A ver, le vamos a dar un nombre. ¿Cómo quieres que se llame?
Se llama Egon. Espantapájaros. Se llama Egon.
Egon.
Egon, sí.
Pero si lo pone ahí. ¿Y os gusta ese nombre?
Sí.
Con la lección aprendida, vuelta a las clases convencionales y la alegría de un duro día de trabajo en el campo.
Okay, so we can see there a little bit about how the garden looks and the kind of things we do there. The really lovely thing is that, as I said before, the children respond really well to Ricardo, who is the guy here who comes and does our classes with us at the moment. And they love having lessons with him, and as I said, they just treat him as one of their teachers, which for us is really important. Let's see if we can move on without the video starting itself again. There we go. Okay, so as we come towards the end of the presentation, just to share again, as I mentioned before, pupil voice, again, really important to us. So as our project continues to grow, we stop at the end of each term and we get the children to do pupil voice. Now in this context, again, we're working now with Year 1 and Year 2 children, so we've got much younger learners as well as the Year 2 children who already had an experience of gardening before. We ask them questions such as, in the garden I learn a lot, loads, a little, that kind of thing, and they go in and they stick their stickers where they think their answer should be on the chart. Again, it's just a nice, really interactive way of them showing us how they feel about the gardening lessons and how much they appreciate them, and then we do ask them, if we could do one thing in the garden that we don't already, what would you love to do? Some of them make crazy claims like we should grow a banana tree, but you know, that's lovely. We love to hear their pupil voice. And we also, of course, take teacher voice, really important for us too, to make sure that our teachers who go along with their classes feel that they are being upskilled, feel that they are participating in those sessions and feel that it is useful for the children. The Fundación who we work with, we also work with them to give us follow-up activities that the teachers work on in class with the children after the gardening lessons. So the teachers are doing the sort of theoretical side of things or following up with vocabulary, with observational skills. They take photographs quite often and they have a look at them in a bit more detail. And what we also want is for the teachers to feel that their own knowledge and understanding of environmental issues and plant growth and those topics is also being worked on. So you can see here we've got some good feedback from some teachers. The gardening project, the first one says, seems fundamental to me for environmental education. It gives the children values, respect towards nature, and to care for their environment, for the environment. The second one, children love gardening. Sometimes they listen for a long time, always good feedback, and we're always looking at ways to improve the project. They're very young, so sometimes they're just so keen to get into the garden, they can't sit still. They're really well adapted. And the children really enjoy being outside in the open air. So in terms of us as a school, this has impacted a lot of children. About 260 students at the moment are enjoying the gardening project. We're upskilling about 42 teachers, the ones who are involved in the sessions. We currently have about 50 meters squared of cultivated area. So that gives us the opportunity to grow many different plants, many different vegetables. And something that we're working on in the next year or so is what we do with our harvest. So we've invariably been sharing it sometimes with teachers to take home to enjoy, sometimes with a local food bank that we've got a contact with. So that's something else that we're working on for the coming school year, to think about how we can use that slightly better. So just to finish off, as I said, the future of the gardening project looks like the Nature Observatory. We have reorganised, rebuilt our space. You can see it there, that sort of strange squared out triangular shape that we have in our school. We've now got an outdoor classroom, which is there labelled on the screen as Kiosco, a really nice place for us to start our gardening lessons. We have different areas of vegetation. We've got our plants, our vegetables that we grow in our allotments, but we've now also got different spaces which are designed to attract Wildlife, you can see there we've got a small pond area now. The kids were really excited at school on Friday because somebody saw a frog. So we're getting very excited about the nature, the wildlife that we're going to start to see. We've got zones there, we've got a bird feeder, we've got an area for the little salamanders that we see around the school to try and hide and find refuge from the noisy children. We've got a weather station, you can see there in the bottom of the screen, which has got a pluviometer, an anemometer and a wind vane, so the children again can come down and not just in those science lessons, they can now start to think about using their mathematics skills, reading scales. So we're developing this area as a space that we can use in a more cross-curricular way, and we're also hoping that we can extend that further up into the school so that older children in our school can also enjoy and make the most of it. Another quite a long quote here from the Fundación, but again, really, really important. They're the ones who've helped us to develop our sensory garden, the nature observatory. The idea is that it's a more natural and more friendly space, that we want it to continue to be a place which promotes collective learning. But again, because of the involvement with the charity that we work with, it's all about as well that education diversity and working alongside these people who we work with who have intellectual disabilities, which would otherwise mean that they can't enter the world of work. And I really love the last two sentences in this statement. Participating in this innovative project is making a new, more sustainable, fair and inclusive educational model a reality. That's such a nice way to look at it. We're really, really trying to sort of transform the way that we teach within this outdoor space. As you can see throughout the presentation, I hope I've been able to show you how the project is enabling us to reach many of our goals that we have in the school in terms of curriculum, inclusion, diversity, environmental issues, awareness of what's going on in the world. And all of that starts with the gardening space as a hub, with the Nature Observatory as a hub. So it's something we're really excited about as it continues to grow. And again, sorry to use the pun, as it continues to grow, but we're not finished yet. It's a project that we like to continue developing, and we want to just see how far it can go. So that's everything I've got. There you can see a photograph of how the school looks now. You can see the outdoor classroom there in the middle. You can see our planters already. I was with a few children in the gardening area just tidying up at the end of last week, and there's already a few things I think ready to harvest. The school's changed a little bit. Those of you with a really eagle eye will notice that the building next door has also gained an extra floor, but that's not part of the gardening area. But if anyone has any questions, anything that wasn't clear or anything you'd like to know a bit more about the project, now's the time for questions. So I'm going to take the slide away so we can see each other.
Thanks, Rebekah.
Thank you.
That's fantastic. So it's so interesting, and I'm sure everybody watching would really like to do some kind of project like this if they haven't. We have a question from Anita. She said, when you were showing the picture of the children working with the planters, she said, what do the rest of the class do while there's a few people working at the planter?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have two leaders who lead the workshops. The children come down with their class teacher, so there will be normally 3 adults. The younger children in year 1, they also have a teaching assistant, so in that case there'll be 4 adults in the gardening space with them. But usually what happens is the class is divided into 2. One class will do daily responsibility tasks like watering or observing, and the other group will do a craft activity or something back in the outdoor classroom space where there's a few benches and tables where they can work at, and then halfway through the session they swap over so that everyone gets a chance to do a bit of watering, a bit of observation, taking some photographs, and they also get to do some kind of creative activity based on whatever's going on in the garden in that season.
Okay, I mean, one thing I thought was really interesting is how the activities were divided, into different categories like responsibility category. You said environmental awareness and developing skills. I mean, is there one that you would recommend to pay extra attention to at different stages of the project, or
a type of activity or a specific activity?
Yeah, like a type. Yeah.
I mean, we really try to make sure that across a period of lessons, of sessions in the garden, that they do all of those different ones. And obviously the responsibility ones, those are weekly or daily tasks, so they have to be done. And that's we talk to children at the beginning of the project about how there are certain jobs which have to be done, and children love routines, don't they? So after a few weeks, they're the ones who are saying, don't forget we need to water this, or don't forget we need to do that, because they're the weekly jobs that they just get used to doing. So those ones don't have to be, as we would say, planned so much, because in the end the children lead those. So it's the other activities, the craft, the environmental issues. So always within each sort of block of lessons, we build up towards some kind of creative making activity. So the scarecrows is one, and that they spend a few sessions making their scarecrows. They build bird feeders, they make them themselves. They make paper, as I mentioned in the presentation, out of different vegetable skins, and they try to decide which ones are the best for pressing and making into paper, which ones can we write on, which ones are a disaster. So they have a bit of fun with trying to make different papers. And some of them start saying, let's try it with lettuce leaves, and then they try writing on lettuce with a pencil, and that doesn't really go so well. So I think those are the ones which are the activities that really grab their attention. But they also, for us, in terms of our planning and our aims, they have that real strong environmental awareness, recycling sort of element that we're trying to educate the children around. And of course, skills activities are part of the science curriculum and part of the UK curriculum in general, aren't they? So observation, recording, explaining what I've seen happening. And for us as a school, the language acquisition, their ability to express themselves, to describe what they can see happening, is for us, of course, really, really important. That, I suppose, depends on the context of the school, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Pilar, actually, who's watching, also commented on that, how it's a great opportunity to integrate language and content through a clear approach as well. And Pilar actually also asks, are the families encouraged to participate in some way?
In the very beginning, pre-COVID, we had a bit more interaction with families. We did allow the children to take some cuttings and things from the garden home with them. Obviously, at the moment, that's not encouraged. So that's where I mentioned that we're trying to find a way to get the community a bit more involved. So we want to be able to say, we produce this lovely harvest, and we really do have a big harvest sometimes. We want to be able to share that with the local community in some way. So again, get families involved or get just the general community involved. That's something we're looking to do this year. We would love to do things like workshops, taking the kids into the kitchen and getting them to prepare their own food, make a salad, or see what the difference is between a raw carrot and a cooked carrot. These are all ideas that we've got to start developing as the garden continues to develop as well.
Great, fantastic. And I was going to ask, actually, what plans did you have? But you've answered that. Well, what about I'm sure lots of the teachers watching this now, or the ones who watch the recording, would love to start something like this. What would you say, imagine I'm a teacher and I don't have any garden experience. How could I get things going? How could I start things off? What would your kind of suggestion be?
Well, I think that I didn't have much garden experience. I will hold my hands up and say it. I've had to do a bit of homework myself, so that doesn't matter. I can tell you from experience. You do need a little bit of space. It doesn't have to be huge. I've visited lots of schools now in Madrid. Did a bit of work in terms of community with other schools in Madrid, and I've seen loads of schools with their own allotments, their own huertos. Some very, very small, some enormous, much bigger than ours. And I don't think it's a space issue that matters. I think as long as you've got somewhere you can put a planter or a bed, and you can get a little bit of help from someone who knows, if you don't know yourself, about what seasons are the right seasons to start planting things. I mean, really, it's because the idea of this kind of project is for the children to lead it. Get them to choose what they'd like to try and grow, find out about when the best time of year is to start growing these different things, and then just give it a go. We've had a few disasters in our garden. We've had a few things that we tried to plant and they didn't work. And of course you get the children, oh, I really wanted to grow that, whatever it was, and it didn't work. But that's part of the learning experience, isn't it? So I think if you're wanting to start out, you've got to invest a bit of time and a bit of money, of course, in getting it going. But depending on the size of your allotment and what you're trying to do there, it is more than enough to have a raised bed with a few vegetables planted, as long as somebody waters them, they will grow, and the kids will love it. I think that's the important thing. The kids will absolutely love it, and no matter what happens, there is always something that you can observe and talk about. So whether it grows well or not, whether you get a nice healthy looking lettuces or slightly small, not so healthy looking ones, it's all part of the learning experience, and it's something to talk about, isn't it? Why do we think our lettuce leaves look like this and not like what we expected? And that's part of the process, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. And you know, here in Spain, especially, well, I think in probably most countries, you can get something grown, right? Even, as you say, in the smallest space, in a bucket, or
exactly.
you know,
I mean,
in a
it's
bucket.
become very fashionable, hasn't it? You know, having a little allotment in your house. The urban allotment is a big thing now, isn't it? So if I can grow something in my kitchen on the side, then I can definitely grow something in my school somewhere. So it's just starting out, taking the risk and starting it out, and get the kids involved in it. That's the most important thing. Get them to decide what they want to do with the space, and then take it from there. Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned that there's some cost involved, and I'm sure first thing we would have to do, right, as English teachers, go to our heads of department, go to our directors, and kind of see if I mean, that kind of leads on to Anita's question here. Is I mean, is it costly? You mentioned getting horticulturists in. Is that costly? Have you found that costs money, or are there people there willing to volunteer their time?
We do pay for our collaboration with the Fundación, because it's part of their project where they're training people up to get into the world of work. So it means some aims for them too. So we are fortunate enough that we do have a source of money that we can use for that. Of course, as well, with the project, the way we've expanded it with the space, building an outdoor classroom, building the pond, installing those different things, that does cost money. But we've also had to go little by little. You know, we would have loved to have had that whole space all in one go, but we have had to build it up over time. Bit of saving for the garden area. So yes, there is an investment of money, but again, that comes back to, it depends how much how big the space you want to use to start with is. I mean, we've just been saying, you know, you literally can grow potatoes in a bag. Like, it's not, you don't have to invest all of that money to start with. Yeah, I think it would depend on where you're teaching. I think it's just a case of looking around, seeing if there is any local horticulturalist who will come in to at least help you get going. The idea with us, with the Fundación, is that they will start leading some teacher training to allow some of our teachers to start leading the sessions as well, so that we won't be so dependent on the sessions with them, although we don't want to lose that collaboration with them because we realise the value of it. We've had parents who themselves have a real green finger and say, you know, if there's ever any chance for me to come in and help, then we would. And I know that there are schools around Madrid where they don't have a professional per se who comes in, but they do have a couple of parents who really know what they're doing, and they come in and they lead the classes with the children. So that's just something to explore, I suppose, in your area. Talk to your school leadership team about it, see if it's something that they would consider getting off the ground, because it really, really is valuable. A way of adding value to your school space, I think.
Yeah, and well, I want to say start off the project small and let it grow, but that would be just an obvious pun.
I can't resist. I make the same pun all the time. It's not on purpose.
and as you said, Rebekah says that, you know, even halved plastic bottles hanging on a wall could also work well as grow boxes.
Yeah. I mean, we've been doing it for years, teachers in the classroom, trying to teach plant growth with, you know, cress in plastic cups and inside eggshells and all those things. So we're very creative teachers, and you can grow something anywhere. The advantage to having a bit of a bigger space is, you know, the variety of things that you can start to grow. But of course, start small is definitely the idea. Start small and then watch it grow.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing the project with us. It's been really, really inspiring, I think, and we're all going to go away and start off the school year now with seeing what opportunities we can do and how we can adapt some of those ideas in the different contexts. Just to finish off and remind everybody then that after this small break now, we've got our new interactive coffee break. It's a great opportunity to meet up with different teachers. You can choose to go in a room by life stage that you teach. For example, if you teach the very little ones in infants, primary or secondary, plus you can also go and speak to our the publishers and editorials that are there as well in different rooms. So I think we've got 5, maybe 6 rooms in total that you can choose from. You can hop from one room to another. All you just need to do is go in via the links that are on the webpage, the conference webpage, that Gemma's kindly put in the Q&A here in a post, or via the Padlet, where we'll be sharing materials from the sessions through the day as well, that you'll be able to access today and after today as well. So thank you so much, Rebekah. Really enjoyed that. And good luck with all of the vegetables this year. You're going to start off the autumn crops now, I guess. Yeah. And happy growing with the children there in Madrid.
Thank you to everybody for joining. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye, Rebekah. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you in the next sessions.